There you are. How are you?
Good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm all right. You are. How many more have I got now? 3, 2. Is this the second to last? No, I've got 2 more after you. Like this, you are. I think you are number 14
Oh my gosh.
in 2 days. I'm a little bit tidy pops.
Yeah, you were like, I'm done with this.
I'm a little bit tidy pops. It's been like the most immense couple of days, I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of looking forward to a glass of wine tonight.
I'm sure.
A glass of wine tonight, and also my mum coming up tomorrow, which she doesn't know quite what she's in for yet. There's going to be a lot of looking after happening.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you need some wine and some rest time.
Yes, Cate, you should be my doctor. Now listen, so to kick things off, first of all, thank you so much for coming and joining us. You and I met digitally the other week, and I loved what we chatted about, and I just realized immediately what a genuinely lovely person you were, and I'm so excited to have you on here, and I know that the stuff that you're going to share is going to be absolutely awesome. So without further ado, if it's all right with you, I'll do a little bit of an introduction, because the role of these sessions is all about us sharing our stories. Because I think, it's World Mental Health Day. Frankly, I think every day we should be talking about mental health. But what? If we have to do this now, that we can get that it will start something tomorrow, then that's a good thing, in my opinion. And so I think in sharing our stories, we can hopefully inspire people that actually life can be a little bit different, that what we have in front of us at the moment doesn't have to be that way, as well as giving really practical tips of how we go and do it. So without further ado, the introduction to the wonderful Cate Sevilla. Cate is an editor and journalist who has led and managed editorial teams for some of the world's largest media and technology companies, including Google, BuzzFeed, and Microsoft. Wowzers. An advocate for diversity and representation with a strong passion for amplifying the voices and stories of women. Her first book is due to be released next year, entitled How to Work Without Losing Your Mind. Isn't it out now?
No, it was meant to be. It was meant to be one of the many books coming out this October, but instead it's the 14th of January next year.
Oh my goodness. I cannot wait to hear about all of this. So first and foremost, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. And tell me a little bit more about this experience. Tell me a little bit more about your kind of story and what led up to you writing the book, for example.
Oh God, a lot of stuff.
I feel like we're going to have a lot to relate on here.
So as from the accent, I'm from California originally. I've been in the UK since 2006, I think. So a while now, but I still sound like this. When I moved, I got into blogging. I wanted to be a writer, and I used to have a blog on this platform called Vox, which is not the Vox that exists now. I worked at one of the UK's first blog publishing companies called Shiny Media, and I worked for myself for a long time. I'm running a women's online magazine called Bitch Buzz, and then in 2013, I was like, I'd really like to maybe make some money. And the market had totally changed, right? I was like, oh, that might be nice. And so then I was lucky enough to get a job at MSN, and I've just kind of worked at various different interesting digital publications since then, sometimes working at, straight publications like BuzzFeed or The Pool, which was its own story, or working at a editorial team at a tech startup or a big tech company like Google. So I think with the book, let's see. I had a really tough few years working. It kind of started, I think, 2016 when I left BuzzFeed and I went to a tech startup called Drive Tribe that was founded by the old Top Gear hosts. So Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, James May. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I thought that'd be chill or something, but definitely.
I mean, that's kind of going from BuzzFeed to that. I mean, out of the frying pan into the fire, one might say.
Yeah, it really was. So I was there very briefly because I had a job offer from Google, and I was like, well, I think I'll do that instead. And that actually kind of started one of the toughest working experiences I had ever had. And it wasn't necessarily because the job itself was hard. It was more so the relationships and the people that I was kind of dealing with, and the overall vibe was just not right for me. It was really kind of triggering in so many different ways. And I went through like such a, as the Americans like to say, such a journey with my own mental health, my relationship to work. And it was really, really difficult. I had so many like physical symptoms from all the stress and everything. And I eventually left. And I had a wonderful job offer from the Pool, where I was going to be editor-in-chief. And I was there for from September 2018. And then in January 2019, the company just kind of stopped paying people.
Oh,
and
shit.
Yeah, and it was just this whole horrible thing on social media because they owed so many freelancers money and contractors money and staff money. It was terrible, really, really terrible. So I kind of went from this really crappy situation at Google to thinking I had like my dream job and my dream position, dream publication. And then that went terribly wrong. And so in my kind of recovery from that, I was like, I would really like to write about this. And I thought, okay, I did the thing where I kind of like kept the thing that I really wanted, kind of like a few steps removed. I was like, maybe I could write an article or maybe like a series of articles. And then maybe one day that could be a podcast. And then maybe one day, if that does really well, I could then make a book. And I was like, what are you doing? The thing you actually want to do, you want to write a book about working and about one's relationship to work. And so I was like, okay, fine. I'll do that. And then kind of kicked off the complicated anxiety-ridden process of trying to get published and trying to get an agent and all that good stuff. So that's kind of what led to the book.
So this is really interesting, isn't it? Do you think that the working environments that you were working within, do you think that there was an element of they were genuinely really hard? Or was there certain things that specifically, do you think, triggered you?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't necessarily think it was the nature of those companies because what's interesting is that for some reason, I just always ended up working for American companies that are based in the US, but obviously from the UK. And I think the kind of international working environment and having international colleagues suited me really well. And I'm competitive and ambitious. And so the idea of climbing the corporate ladder didn't feel particularly daunting to me. When I got to Microsoft, I was like, oh, I think I could stay here. Of course, I ended up only being there for a few months because they did a massive restructure and made me redundant. But when I was there, I was like, oh, I could do this. And I definitely kind of had that drive where that sort of environment didn't necessarily seem terrible to me. And then as time went on, I realized that the emotional side of it, the management side of it, the human side of these companies isn't there enough for me to be able to thrive with all of the other stuff going on. You kind of need both. You need to take care of people and also ask a lot of people at places like that. And you can't just have one of the.
And I really get that. Listen, and we see a hell of a lot of that within the companies that we work, and hence the reason that, the whole thing that we do is about making companies much more human, right?
Yeah.
I think that, so where do I want to go with this? There's so much that I want to say about this. I find this very interesting to have a conversation with you about it as someone who has been at the consequence of it, shall we say, and very openly talked about that, and actually then, because normally when we're coming in, we're looking at it from the point of the organization, right? And actually the organization, right, what can you be doing better to look after your people and support them for individuals? But really, so the work that we do is to go into an organization to do some kind of audit, understand what's going on and how people are feeling, and then input either some new processes or ways of working, or indeed and education in order so those individuals can have new skills or behaviors or beliefs that are going to help them work better.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting here is that you've come at it, you're coming at that from an individual within that organization's point of view of, shit, this is the stuff that we should be doing. And when you come up with that, is that for individuals to be thinking about how they could be surviving, and I use that term loosely, these organizations better, or is it advice to organizations?
Yeah, so the book is very much about just your normal everyday person, whether they're, working for themselves and worked in an office in the past. But it's very much kind of focused on acknowledging that the system is not set up for you to thrive. And we go a bit in
Not
that.
set up for humans, period.
No, absolutely not. So and especially for women in the workplace, women of color in the workplace, people with any sort of different neurological differences, it's not set up for you. And so there's acknowledgement of that, but it's more so, okay, I'm not the best person right now to try to change the system. There's plenty of other very interesting, powerful people that's their thing. My thing is more so, okay, let's acknowledge that the system is messed up, but let's see what is it that we can do right now as individuals to kind of shift our own relationship to our career, relationship to our jobs, our job titles, our managers, our colleagues. What is it that we can do to, survive, get what it is that we actually think that we want, think about what we want, and crucially ask for it. Because I think a lot of times we have this idea of, well, I shouldn't have to ask my manager for X, Y, or Z. They should just know. And it's because that they don't know. That's why they're bad. And it's like, but you still have to ask. You still have to do the uncomfortable thing of speaking up for yourself.
And that's such a big thing, isn't it? Such a big thing. I coach people so often and they're like, oh, I can't believe that they haven't done that. I'm like, okay, right. First and foremost, did you tell them?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. Were you aware that you wanted that to happen? Well, no, not really. Well, how the fuck are they going to know? And we have this thing when it comes to setting boundaries or asking for ourselves that is really confrontational and it's going to cause a problem and it's going to be an issue, blah, blah, blah. And it isn't. It's at the heart. But having clarity, setting a healthy boundary, having clarity on what you want and then communicating it to others, in particular now, given we're not with each other as much as we have been previously, is at the heart of a healthy relationship that does not waste emotional energy.
Yep.
The amount of emotional energy. And I'm thinking about a circumstance I'm in personally at the moment, and I'm kind of seething about something, but I haven't been clear enough about it yet.
Yeah.
And that's on me. That is totally on me,
Yeah.
Really, 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 really interesting. So tell me some more stuff within this in terms of other learnings from you, things that really genuinely affected you during that time, and potentially that maybe you suffered from, and then that's a learning that you've put into the book. Can you give me a good example of one of those things?
Yeah. I think having way too much of my own identity wrapped up in my career, wrapped up in the company I worked for, wrapped up in my job title, my salary, all of it. I think there was so much of me that I had invested in the work me, that the other parts of it, my home life, my other relationships, how I felt about myself, what I actually really wanted for myself in life versus thinking about it in terms of, well, what job do I want to have? Where do I want to be career-wise? What do I want my job title to be? I think I had so much of myself invested in that's kind of the whole world that I lived in. And I'm a big fan of therapy, of psychotherapy. I've been in psychotherapy for 6.5 years, I think it is now. And I realized that I was playing out so much like familial drama and like creating kind of playing out different, like making my manager a maternal figure and playing out kind of elements of that at work. And I knew that I had been doing that for a while and being aware of it. And then when things got super stressful in one of my jobs in particular, it was like, okay, I know what this is. I know what I'm kind of doing and what I'm playing out. So it's just kind of like being able to realize what was being kind of triggered for me. But I think basically I lived too much. Work took up way too much space in my head. My managers were taking up way too much space in my head. I just felt like my whole self-worth was
work.
In this job, in work, in my career. And it's not.
And it's not, is it? And and I think that this is really interesting, in particular during this time, because the point is that actually, hold on, sorry.
Oh, we froze a bit, huh?
It's on
Instagram.
You see me? I haven't paused.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I think this is really, really interesting during this time. And the reason being is that, if many people feel like that, right? And if I think about it, in London in particular, probably more so than when I go back home to Bournemouth, in London in particular, what's your name? What do you do? Right? We are all, our identity is all tied up in that. I think probably that's an older generation thing. I genuinely think that our Gen Zs, are going through something quite different, and actually they are emotionally intelligent enough to realize that they are much more than the sum of their parts. And arguably then they're probably a little bit more tuned in to working out who they are, what they stand for, and how they can get more of that stuff in their life. But the point being that if currently for many of us work is our identity, and the challenges that we're going through, particularly if many of us are going to get made redundant, what do we do about that, right? Because who am I now? And I suppose where I relate to on this, it's slightly different. But I broke up with an ex-partner a year ago, and I lived down in Bournemouth with it. Sorry, I'm going slightly off topic. I'm just sharing.
That's all right.
Just
share your story.
And I, why not? That's the whole point of this. And I moved back up to London, and so for me, moving back up here, the point of it was that I wanted, to be running my business back up in London, filling my life with all of the stuff that London presented. My friends, going to lovely places and culture and bars and restaurant and blah blah blah. And COVID meant all of a sudden that identity that was now Cate Murden 2020 was now not possible. And it was like, well, who am I now? So it's hard.
It is.
I'm talking about it in that capacity, but what about if our jobs are our thing? How do we re-identify? How do we work out what we are now, for want of a less wank way of putting it? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I mean, it is really, really terrible. Whether you are made redundant from a company that you put your heart and soul into, and you thought that that was a big part of you. If you don't work there, then who are you? And a lot of these startups, a lot of these bigger tech companies, that's kind of what they drill into you. You're a Googler, for instance, right? So when you lose that job, or when you have a manager that, for example, makes your life a living hell and clearly does not want you there. So whether you're managed out or made redundant, whatever, that loss is huge. And I mean, to be honest, you just kind of have to, firstly, you have to feel it. You have to allow yourself to grieve and to think about why, and to acknowledge, like, oh my God, this place meant so much to me. This job meant so much to me, why? So I think firstly, acknowledging it and letting yourself grieve and giving yourself, as much time as you financially can, I suppose, before you need to jump in and try to find a new job. But I think a lot of what we're talking about here is actually asking ourselves what it is that we want.
Absolutely.
What do you actually desire? And I have a whole chapter on this in the book, and I write about it a lot actually in the book. But there's this kind of exercise that I had to do on a course that I went to try to manage some of my stress and this eye twitch that I had for like 8 weeks, where you wrote freely for 2 minutes about what it is that you actually want out of your life. And the things that came up for me, I was like, oh, well, what? That's what I actually want.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And it sounds really simple, but I think it's something that I've really struggled with in my life, just being able to ask myself, what
Yes.
is it that I want? And that
Oh,
is scary. It's
so
really scary,
true.
particularly when, you know, if you were like, oh, I want to move back to London and I want this and I want that. And then things like COVID happen, and it's kind of building that resilience of, okay, this doesn't mean this isn't supposed to happen. It's just a setback.
Yeah.
And what kind of
Yeah.
opportunities actually is this setback presenting me? And how do I feel about it? It's hard.
It's really hard, and it's really, really interesting actually that you're saying this, because that is a question that I ask myself so often. What do I want life to look like? Right. And funny enough, I said this to someone earlier and they went, actually, there's something before that. What do I want to feel? Right.
Yes,
And
I was thinking,
how do I want to feel? What do I
yeah.
want life to look like? And, you know, and I've got to be honest and again, being very candid, you know, that for me, part of the reason why the relationship ended in the first place, and consequently I moved up to London and blah, 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 was asking that question. That question in the first instance. What do I want life to look like? Because actually at the moment, the way that life is looking is not what I want it to be.
Yeah.
And it's a very, I think doing that self-audit is one of the most powerful things that anyone can do. And it's bloody hard, and it takes time and it takes energy. But I hope that one thing that can come out of this hard and challenging situation, if it's going to be something that we're going to grow from, is asking that question. That question and then working out what we need to do to action it, right?
Yeah, and doing it regularly.
Yeah.
And constantly kind of checking back in, because you can set a goal. Okay, in 5 years' time, I want to be doing this thing, and then working like crazy. That doesn't always work. You change. You now versus in 5 years is very different. And quite frankly, the risk that a lot of this involves to get to where it is that you want is going to push you completely out of your comfort zone. There's a reason why you've not done a lot of this stuff yet, right? Because it's scary, it's uncomfortable, it can make you feel anxious. There's a lot wrapped up in it, right? So while it may sound simple to go, okay, what do you want? And then follow your dream. Like, that's not what we're saying. We're saying really seriously ask yourself, what do I want to feel like? What do I want my life to look like and to feel like? And how do I get there? Okay, the first steps to getting there might be breaking up with a partner, or quitting your job, or needing to come up with a business plan for this business idea that you have. And, oh my God, I need to get funding. What the hell do I even do to get that? Because you don't just jump from, I'm quitting my job, to, oh my God, I'm a successul businesswoman running my own startup. There's all of this stuff.
I really wish that had happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And it gets fucking uncomfortable and fucking messy, you know? And you've got to be prepared. I mean, this has come out time and time and time again during these conversations. You've got to be prepared to get messy and commit through this, because it's hard, you know. And actually, so Seb Fuken, who we spoke to yesterday, he's the founder of Free Running, amazing man, and he just said, you know, when you realize that life is hard and life is full of obstacles, suddenly it gets a lot easier. And it's just like, oh yeah. Like, and actually, you know, that suddenly that lowers my anxiety. That helps me realize that I'm doing okay, because part of the time, most of the time, I think that we're beating ourselves up that we're not feeling great, or we're beating ourselves up that life isn't good, or that we haven't hit expectations, or however we deem that. Actually, the other motherfuckers going through the same shit as well. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. And we have such a bizarre window into how other people want us to think that they're doing with social media, and that, you know, like that has a lot to answer for, particularly with these like life goals and how people live and what your daily life is like. You know, real life just really, really doesn't look like that. And I think that there are more and more influencers and people who are more honest and more transparent and kind of give context to what's actually going on for them, which is wonderful. But, you know, it's, as you were saying, it's messy and it's mundane. And not everything is
Yeah.
extraordinary and exciting. There's a lot of really, really boring shit that goes on. And I think particularly when it comes to looking after your mental health, it's boring and it's hard.
Yes.
And that's why
Yes.
people, I think a lot of times don't want to talk about that side of it, or don't want to take responsibility for some parts of it, because that shit is boring. It
Oh
really
my God.
is.
Oh my God.
It's daily.
So
It's
true.
relentless.
Do you know what? And actually, so Paul Mort, who is like just someone who I just think is amazing, and he was on here today, and he was diagnosed with bipolar, and was what set him on this journey was 2014, when he was stood on a cliff about to commit suicide, and it was his wife that talked him down from it, and he now, you know, a huge part. Sorry, my phone's just moving. And a huge part of why or how he maintains his mental health is by the routine that he has, the commitment that he has to his self-care, right? Yeah. And I don't like the term self-care. I like the connotation of it, but I think it sounds a bit fluffy.
It's lost.
It's, you know, let's be clear, it's necessary, right? It's beyond just care. It's absolutely necessary, you know, and that for him is a routine that he does every single morning. It's about out his journal for the day, his plan for the day, as he puts it, setting his intentions, putting attention on his intentions, and he refers to them as like the bouncer to his life, right? Your intentions are like, you know, the bouncer stood on the right red carpet for your life, and he, that's the thing that keeps him in line. But that is the hard bit, and that is the bit where most people will fail, because they won't be bothered every single day, and therefore the shit can come in. You know, you've got to get clear about what you want in your life regularly.
And it's not, I mean, but that's really funny. So I write about that. I write about that in the book as well, how particularly in the context of like losing your job and kind of overcoming that. When I was kind of going through that with the pool, I had to write down a really, really boring checklist. Literally, I think called like Cate self-care. And it's like, have you washed your face? Have you brushed your teeth? Have you taken a shower today? What have you eaten today? Has it just been cheese and bread? Do we maybe need to get some vegetables in you? Have you stretched? I know, right? And it's just all of these things for me to check in with myself. And when I do those things on a daily basis, I feel so much better. But then the trick is, when you start to feel better, you go, I don't need to do yoga today. That's fine. I don't need to do that. That's fine. I can just sit and watch TV for 7 hours. I'm fine. And then it just kind of all catches up with you. And hence why it's boring and uncomfortable, because then you have to go, even if I'm feeling fine, I still need to do this stuff to maintain my baseline. Right. And it's so hard.
My internal saboteur is like, it is out there. Can I just tell you, this is how much of a dickhead my internal saboteur is. Like, I had one of those, you know, meal delivery things, like, and it was incredible. So this food I got every morning, 5 lovely meals made, and all I had to do was either eat it or put it in the microwave and eat it. Delicious, nutritious, absolutely amazing. And I did it for 3 weeks. At the middle of the 3 weeks, I was like, despite having all this delicious food, I was like, oh no, I don't want to eat this anymore. I just want to eat cheese and bread. Like,
I think I might just let it go off and sit on the side.
Yes. What? And like the brain, like, it's offering me no benefit whatsoever. Like the sabotage I do to myself is insane. Listen, on a much more important note, could you share? Funnily enough, I actually had a dream. This is so ironic, because I had a dream last night about being made redundant, which, as someone who runs their own business, that would be harsh. And I had listen, this is something that a lot of people are going to be going through at the moment. I actually contributed to an article a few weeks ago for Stylist about managing our anxiety through furlough and through redundancy. Can you share any tips for anyone at the moment, either, I mean, probably not so much in furlough quite so much, but you know, who are facing some pretty challenging and anxiety-inducing times with work, albeit that's going to end up as redundancy? What can you share, Cate?
Yeah, I think if you are afraid that you are going to lose your job, honestly, just start to kind of plan. I think that's the thing, is that I wish that I had known or done prior to my job disappearing and suddenly stop getting paid, I'm like, what did I used to spend my money on? Like, why wasn't I just saving more money? I think if you're privileged enough, if you're lucky enough to be able to just put a bit of money away, to give yourself a month buffer or something. And I know there's plenty of people who are like, there's no way I can't do that. And I totally understand. I'm saying if you can do it.
Okay.
And I think, putting
you
out
have that bit more comfort, right? So you just
exactly. It gives you, so okay, well, if I'm fired tomorrow, then at least I know I'm fine until, the 5th of May before it is that I need to kind of start making money again. So I think starting to have a plan, putting out some feelers to people, looking at what is maybe available, that probably can help with anxiety if you're worried about losing your job. If you have lost your job, I think one of the main things is to give yourself as much time as you possibly can financially to recover. To recover emotionally, to be angry, to be grief-stricken, because when you're in that place, and then you get straight on LinkedIn and try to find a job, that's probably not going to work out so well, because if you're going into job interviews when you're still fucking furious that you lost your last job,
or in stress mode, right?
Or you're going to make an insane job decision. You're going to end up working for I don't know, Jeremy Clarkson, because you were so keen to get out of your last job. You don't always think straight. I think so. Really giving yourself time and then go, okay, enough. I need a plan. What is it that I need to do? How much money is it I need to bake? That'd be nice. Make with your sourdough. And then really kind of ask yourself, okay, what are the kind of lines for me? Will I absolutely not do a job like that? Do I just need to bring in enough income? Do I have space here to maybe try to get into an industry and maybe take a more entry-level position? It all kind of comes back to, what do you want?
Do you know what?
How can you deal financially?
And that, I think, is those are awesome tips. And I'd actually add, I'd do a build on that, because I think that what you said there, that moment of, rather than just flip-flopping into something else immediate, or trying to flip-flop into something else immediately, trying to see the opportunity in this. And I say that lightly. I don't say that lightly, because I know how hard that is.
It's terrible.
And what I know that fear, and I have been there myself, and that fear is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
But all I will say, having started my own business, having gone from a place of leaving a job, starting my own business, realizing actually that money can come from in many different forms. I think when you've been in when you've worked full time, so that you immediately think, well, I need to go to another full-time role. Actually, you can have lots of different means of money coming in. It doesn't always have to be the obvious thing or the alternative to what you did previously. And actually, I believe that we're pretty fucking tenacious creatures when we need to be.
We really are.
We will make that work. And that, for me, when I started the business, I moved back home. I rented out my flat in London, moved back in with my parents, which, let me tell you, for a 39-year-old woman, was a pretty bloody humbling experience.
But that's the thing, is that you make these tough decisions. You don't go, I'm 39, I couldn't possibly live with my parents, and then get yourself to an even worse situation. There's times where you're just going to have to squash your ego a bit and go, do we just need to do this to make some money, or to save some money, or to get what we actually want?
Because it's passing, right? It's not forever, and I think that's the thing, making sure that this doesn't feel totally pervasive and overwhelming. It's just, it's not permanent, right? It's just in this moment.
Nothing is. Very few things are.
And I think that helps with the calming. And I think the final bit about it is that, so opening it up, so that moment of what are all of the choices here. But I think there's really something in, actually, I don't know anyone that a year down the line, or 2 years down the line, or 5 years down the line, who you have that conversation with, who doesn't say that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yep.
And
it feels terrifying, but it's always okay. Some way or another, it always becomes okay.
Yeah. Oh, Kate, this has been amazing. You have
Oh.
lit up my afternoon. You genuinely have. You are
Oh,
a
thank you.
wonderful, wonderful human. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I think there are so many incredible tips there, and thank you for sharing your story within it, and for using that to such good. You know, right now there are so many people that will benefit from what you're sharing. They really, really will, and you are awesome. You all honestly are, and I hope that we get to work together a lot more in the future.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you very much.
You're a wonder. See you soon. Have a lovely afternoon.